Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our latest edition of Stories for Healing. Those of you who've started to make this a habit know that this is an attempt to bring healing to this divided world that we live in, and to do it not by telling people what's right or wrong or what they should do or shouldn't do or anything like that, to simply gather together and hear stories of healing, hear stories from storytellers around the world. Um, Now, in the United States tonight, it's a very momentous night. It's the beginning of a season, I think, before we find out who our next president is. But we're not the only ones in the world struggling with division. We're not the only ones in the world in need of healing. And so tonight, we're really very honored to have Valentina Ortiz come and tell us a story about healing for tonight. So, Valentina, would you please tell us a story?
Okay. Hello from Mexico. Um, this is a story, and you will hear different languages because we are all about different cultures, different languages. Barasuayo, omonya la guana mama que nirawo eh. O baraguayo, omonya la guana mama que nirawo eh. O baraguayo, hecho dara. Omonya la guana mama que nirawo eh. I had COVID only a few weeks ago. And when it is confirmed that I have this sickness, I leave where I am living in a collective situation and come back to Mexico City to my house. And it's hard enough to have the disease, but what I faced was quite a lesson, which is called discrimination. So I ask, please do not discriminate those who are sick. We perfectly understand that you must keep distance, that you cannot touch us, that you cannot feed with us. But we can keep that distance and still be loving. And those who are sick, we need that love so much. I arrive at night to Mexico City, and my two children, who I love, and they love me so dearly, are actually aggressive with me. Fear has dominated them. And as I walk into my house, my roommate starts yelling to me that I shouldn't be there. And I have to explain to her, this is my house. This is my safe place. And it is big enough for us both. And then she starts yelling at me that she wants her money back because she is leaving immediately. I give her her money back. But not once did my children, or did she ask me how I was or what I needed. I was sick. And I think it is so important, as I said before, that we do not lose our humanity in front of fear, that we do not forget that the other person is a human being, has a name, has needs, has dreams, has a family just like us. And the following story is a personal story that talks about this exactly. And it will start, the first song was a Yoruba song, an African song, which is a song that gives me peace and opens the path. So the song you will hear now is an Irish song that I learned from a Mexican singing teacher. And this story, when I wrote it, the one you will hear, needed an Irish song. So here it goes. Habanyek na gerihula, habanyek na gerihul, habanyek na gerihula, skalam na kahurachrem, you are a hamorikabem, you are a hamorikab, you are a hamorikabem, skalam na kahurachrem, hetakaya rushumbolo, hetakaya rushumbo, rushumbulu never follow, hetakaya rushumbo, hetakaya rushumbulu never follow. I had to tell a story. And suddenly I was paralyzed. I was mute. I could not utter a word. Here I am, standing in the middle of what was once the jailhouse of the Catholic Inquisition. It's a very old building. It has no windows. Catholic Inquisition. We're talking 16th, 17th century. We're talking a military group that belonged to the Spanish church. And what they did is decide who had dealings with the devil and who did not. And as they decided this, they would torture people in horrendous ways. First, they would take all their wealth away. Then they would lock them up in the jail. The jail where I was standing had these little tiny cells where you could barely stretch out. It had a little larger cell where the whole family would be put in. And the place would be flooded at least half the year. So people in the cells would have water to their knees. And there were the torture chambers where the Inquisition invented these horrendous machines to break bones, cut fingers off, tear tongues off, hang people. And for some bizarre reason, the Mexican National University had commissioned me, a storyteller, to make a show for children about this Inquisition jailhouse. And yes, the Inquisition in Mexico, led by the Spanish church, was all against the Jewish community, the Jewish marranos, as they called them, that had come to live in Mexico and that had good lives, that had wealthy businesses, that were a strong community. And for some reason, the Spanish wanted to break that community. So here I am, paralyzed in the middle of my rehearsal with this show. And suddenly I followed an impulse. I walked up to those big old walls in this very cold building, and I put my hand on the wall, and it was burning hot. I started walking all around the room, and it was hot. It was very hot. And suddenly I started to hear the voices. And I had another impulse. I ran out of the building, but not to flee, no. I went to the store and I bought these votive candles and flowers. I came back and put them all around the room. And then I left and went home. And that night I rewrote the stories. My stories where I talked about the horror, about suffering, about denigration, about people that were burnt alive because these church people decided they could not have their own beliefs. And my stories changed so much. The next day I came to do the rehearsal and I was very nervous and I went up to the walls and they were chilly and I wasn't paralyzed again. And then we did the show and the children loved it and I had 3 seasons of this very successful show and I just recorded those stories a few months ago. You know what happened? It was amazing. My stories changed in such a way that instead of talking about victims, about numbers, about suffering, about people that lost everything, their dignity, their wealth, their names, they had to change their names. Instead of talking about that, my stories became stories about people. Yes, they were in jail. Yes, they were killed. But people that had dreams, that fell in love, that had their favorite dishes. My stories, one of them is about a donkey and a dog that lived in the jail. And they had a long discussion about the cats because the cats would take messages from one cell to the other, hidden, well, tied up here to a beautiful ribbon that they had on them. And the cats were the messengers of the people in the jail. My story was about love because the young man from one cell fell in love with the young woman from the other cell, and he would sing love songs all day long. It were about dishes because the families that were locked up would get these special spices from the slaves that would jump off the roof and bring them those special flavors, and they would make up these amazing dishes. It was about dreams. They were about friendship. It was about talents. There was a poet that was locked up for like 25 years, and he wrote 999 poems on his sheet, making the ink out of charcoal, water, and a little bit of lemon. Yes, my stories were even about different languages because the people locked up there, some spoke African, some spoke Yiddish, some spoke Spanish, Portuguese, indigenous Mexican languages. And they would all yell out after the food in the afternoons and have these complicated conversations. So yes, My stories about the horrendous Inquisition became human. And that way I was able to talk to all these children and tell them what the voices I heard wanted. They wanted to share words of hope. They wanted to share words of dreams, words of dignity. So as a Mexican today, this very special day, as a Mexican who has been insulted for several years with this whole idea of a wall to keep us out, a wall to keep you guys on the other side, a wall so complex, I ask of you, I ask of everybody, do not forget we are human. The sick one is a human just like you. The person on the other wall is a human just like you, with a name, with a family, with hope, with fears, with bad things, with shameful things. But we are humans. Whatever happens tonight, whatever happens tomorrow, let's not forget that we are all humans and that we can all communicate regardless of whatever language, because we share so many things. And I would like to share some of my Mexican magic power, love. So if please you accompany me, let's salute the sun, the water, the earth, the fire, because we all share that and we cannot live without them. The language I will speak is Nahuatl, one of the 365 Mexican indigenous languages. So please, just if you put your hands up, we will salute the sun. Oquisaco intonatium totonametl xiuhpitlontli cuauhtliuaninsin ahom notlatocas ausemilhuitis kiuxitla inmochiua inicoitlapan mahimotecotilis mahimotlacotilis totecuillo juané. And now if you put your hands down, we will salute the earth. Chimalhuitlinonca ipan tlaltipactli itlaxicxiua xisintoca xinetoca xinecuautoca yuctictipias nelhuayotl ipan tlaltipactli. And now we will salute the fire. Motlachcuyan totaj, 5 tamales para renacer. Fuego nuestro Padre, tú estás para comer. Fuego nuestro Padre, tú estás para comer. 5 tamales para renacer. And now if you put your hands on your heart, we will salute the water. We are all made of water, the same water. We all share the same water. Weiti tata, weiti nana, yikati atl, amokana tia timotekipa, chos, amokana tia timocuesos, ikasetes katlawili. Ika inon mitzkahke, weiti tata, weiti nana, weiti tata, weiti nana. And now let us take a few seconds to salute each one, whoever we want to salute, in whichever way we need to salute. Thank you very much.
Oh, Valentina, thank you. Thank you so much. What a tremendous uh, uh, evening you've given us here, more than
Thank you.
just a story. Um, I where have you come across those indigenous languages? Can you tell us a little bit about your encounters, your early encounters there?
Believe it or not, in Mexico, there are millions of people that still speak their indigenous language,
Hmm.
old versions, newer versions that have developed. There, and in Mexico, there's 365 different languages. And if you talk language, that means cultures, dreams, way of looking at the
I'm
world.
sure. Yeah.
But unfortunately, they're not really recognized a lot. So most of my life, I've really looked into trying to find those. And, you really have to like go and a little
Sure.
deep and find them. And Nahuatl is the language from the center, one of the many languages, but one of the strongest languages of the center of the country. And since I am from that region, so that is why my heart connects with that region, with
Yeah.
that language. I've tried other Mexican languages. I cannot remember 3 words. And this, by magic, genetics,
Oh, that's
I can
wonderful.
memorize them. And I've studied some of it,
Yes.
but that is how.
Well,
And I
and
think
it's
all of us have indigenous languages. You have your Yiddish that you've taken care
absolutely.
of.
Yeah.
So it's all up to us to just find them and cultivate them.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much. And I want to remind everybody else that this is a project that continues. We will be um, continuing these stories every day at 2 o'clock and 2:30 and 8 o'clock at night on the Eastern U.S. time zone. Um, There always will be on Facebook Live, and then, of course, on our YouTube channel, where you can go back and find the ones you've missed and listen to them over and over again as you choose. So please help us all bring healing to the world through this wonderful, wonderful vehicle of stories. So thank you and good night.
Good night.